friends, it's Carly and I'm back again with another review. So we are moving through the piles and piles of toys that I have looked at with you in my last two toy hauls. I've got several videos coming up this week. There will be a short break though while I am out for a dental surgery that will have my mouth kind of messed up. But I'll be back again and we'll probably start doing a video a day because I want to get through these. I'm looking at the piles and there are so many that we're going to have to just speed up because there's a lot of great things coming out and I don't want to miss anything. So with all of that said, this is a figure that I pre-ordered and had forgotten about. It's a part of a line that I didn't love, the Age of Apocalypse line, which kind of gives it all away. But this might be a different story. So today we are going to be looking at En Sabah Nur Apocalypse. Now, if you guys watched any of my Age of Apocalypse videos, you know that I was not a huge fan of the line. I felt really disappointed in a lot of them, a lot of the figures. I tried even to read the comic and wasn't a huge fan of the story, but I will tell you that when I was learning about Apocalypse to do this video, I was blown away by the depth, like the width and breadth of his origin story. There was so much that I literally couldn't even get into it. I didn't get anywhere near Age of Apocalypse, and he is a fascinating character. So I definitely recommend if you guys have a chance to look into him, that you do. So I wanted to show him with his cape on, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pop it off. It literally just pegs into his shoulder pads here, and I'm just going to do that because it's a little bit cumbersome. As you can see, it is the really heavy vinyl, and when I'm telling you a little bit about him and showing him off, I don't want it to like pop off or flop off, but this is a really substantial cape. It's the vinyl. You guys know I prefer cloth, but as vinyls go, it's really nice. So it's sturdy and looks great on the figure. Again, this is one that I pre-ordered from BBTS. I've had really great luck with them lately, so I'm gonna put a link in the description if you guys are interested in pre-ordering. I think they might have this guy in stock right now. You can check that out. So En Sabah Nur, it's really interesting. His story starts, he was born at the edge of the Valley of the Kings in Egypt, and this is how he looked. So it's an origin story that starts similar to Thanos, that this is not the way the rest of the members of his tribe looked. The blue markings on his face, the fact that he has this weird gray skin and blue lips, those are natural features of his skin that, because he's a mutant, he has that no one else in his tribe had. They were completely terrified by him and turned off by him and ended up ultimately abandoning him in the desert, where another wandering tribe, like they were called sandstormers, I think, tribe, came along and found him. And this was a nomadic tribe that believed in survival of the strongest, which is a theme that we see throughout his life all the way up till Apocalypse, Age of Apocalypse. And the leader of the tribe took him on, adopted him, and was his father, and believed that he was here to overthrow the current king, who was called Ramatut. And Ramatut actually was a time traveler who came from the far distant future in a sphinx. And so there's a long story about Apocalypse and his father going to steal Ramatut's time traveling machine so that he can rise up and be the leader of all of the tribes or whatever. It's a crazy story. Ultimately, they're in these crypts. His father dies. He decides to take vengeance for his father's death because of his mutant abilities. He survives in these tombs and catacombs for weeks and weeks. Then he hides out as a slave to infiltrate Ramatut's, inner circle. It's wild and crazy. This was just the first of his stories, you guys. I know I'm like getting super excited and I'm trying not to like jump all over the place, but it is such a good story and it's steeped in all kinds of interesting like historical, if you're interested in Egyptology at all, there's all kinds of just awesome historical references. I highly recommend you look into Apocalypse outside of Age of Apocalypse because his story is interesting. So having said all of that, maybe we should actually talk about the figure in hand now. So after looking at the Age of Apocalypse figures that I already have, I may link a video here. You guys have seen them. You're welcome to look at them. I don't like to dwell on the negative, and for me, those just were not the best. So you can look at those if you want to. But he obviously is the centerpiece of that whole story. And so I had the entire line. There was no way that I could continue on without doing him. There will be more Age of Apocalypse figures coming, so I'll probably do those too. Fingers crossed they'll be a lot better. But I knew I was going to get him, even though by the time I finished that series, didn't expect much. I'm so happy to say that this figure is satisfying. So starting off with just the sculpt on this first head that he has this incredible maniacal look, this evil grin, these burning red eyes. They've got all the features that are critical features of his, you know, his actual countenance, his blue lips, his gray skin. None of that is like any type of mask or anything that he's done to himself. That is the way that he looks. So I love the sculpt, and he has a really substantial, bulky body. This is, I'm sure somebody can tell me what mold this is from. I know that I've probably seen this mold before, but this is a really tight mold. So we don't have any loose, like floppy parts. When I saw in the packaging that he had like sort of the standard points of articulation for a big frame body, I was a little bit nervous, but he is tight and feels new. So you saw that his cape here pins down on his shoulder pads. This is one of the things that I like the most about this figure, is that literally everything on him is layers that comes off. So next we have his shoulder pads that just snap right off. They've got a peg inside that you can see that plops down into his shoulder here. So you can take off his shoulder guards, leaving him like this. Then you can pop off his neck piece, which literally also pegs down. You can see where those pegs are, leaving him just with his actual form, which is how we're going to leave him to look at articulate points. And then he also comes with an additional closed fist. So he's got 2 fists and 1 open hand. The open hand is for the skull that comes with him, the skull accessory, which is super dope. And if you guys check my Instagram, it's at @YourAnnoyingFriendCar with all underscores under each word. I did a really awesome photograph of him posing with this to just show how flexible and you know, successful this figure is. So check that out. It's also on my Facebook page. But having that skull accessory was really cool for that. And then he comes with an additional sort of more serious, scary face like this. Also sculpted beautifully with lots of detail and paintwork done perfectly, just the way that it should be. So his accessories pack is awesome. And the reason that I like that is because you can choose the layers that you're gonna do. You can have his shoulder pads on and just have those, which are really easy to put on, which is one pretty distinct look. Without that, you can still clip in his cloak without the shoulder pads. You can clip it into his shoulders here. You can add his neck piece and have only his neck piece on. You can take that off. You can swap his heads. You can have 2 fists. You can have an open hand. It's just such a great variety with a very few actual moving parts. So I really appreciate the accessories pack on this, and I didn't expect it to be so versatile. So let's go ahead and start looking at the points of articulation now that we've got him all undressed. So we've got a head that you can see without obstruction here. It gets a really great lift up and down, and then a full range of motion from side to side. So we have really great movement in the neck, and once you take all of those additional things off, there's nothing that will obstruct or rub the paint or anything. So you can pose him how you want to and add the components of his costume that you want to after the fact without any concern of rubbing paint or anything. He has a really great lift in his arms. For as muscular as this frame is, this is really great, and it clicks in between points, which I really like. There's a lot of way more individual points on this than normal. So it's like, see how many tiny little points there are? So you can get great poses that will stick, which is great. So the lift is excellent for as bulky as that upper body is, and we have lots of points of articulation in between that will hold. We have an excellent turn in the bicep as usual, which is great. And then even with his glove on, he does still get a reasonable bend in the arm. You kind of have to manipulate the whole arm to get everything out of that. I wish that these slid on and came off. Unfortunately, they're molded in. So that really sort of does hinder the movement in his arm. But because of the bulk of his biceps, I don't know how much more you could really expect to get. I always want more. So I have to say that I'm a little disappointed about that, but I think that it works as good as it could for his size. So I'm not gonna really ding that because it is what it is. You know, when you're working with a figure this muscular, at some point he's not gonna be able to flatten his arm up to his side like that. So I feel like it's pretty good, although I do still wish these glove portions slipped off, sort of like the Iron Man with the Infinity Gauntlet did, but he's still really, really good. So he's got great clicking in the abdomen, so he gets a really good bow. We can see. Let's put the arms up so you can see that. And one really good one back. So that's excellent. He has a great turn in the waist. All of these click through as well. The thigh that turns all the way around. We have a really great functioning knee. I'm really happy about because he has that same sort of cuff on the boot that is on the glove that's sort of preventing the bicep from working so quite as well as I would like. We don't have that problem in the knee at all. And then he has a very flexible rotating knee with a nice turn to the side, lift to the back, and lift to the front. So the articulate points on him are excellent. And again, if you go check out that photograph that I took, I have him balanced. The pose that I did was him balanced on one foot, sort of leaning back and like kicking the skull. So the skull is balanced on his foot, he's leaning back, and he was able to stand like that. I took several photographs. He has a really great center of gravity, and it's because of all those individual clicks we have in all of these different articulate points. You can really balance him out exactly where you want him to go, and because his color is so dynamic and his sculpt is so dynamic, it just makes for really great photography if that's what you're into. The paintwork I want to talk about, obviously if we have a blue underlay, this is sculpted in blue, and it's sort of a metallic blue really. Putting red over that is going to come with its own issues. I feel like mine is pretty good on the stencils on his outer thighs. I do have some issues on this side. You can see I've got some scraping off already. I just feel like that's gonna happen. I'm not happy about it, but I'm realistic. Like when you're doing stencils, which all of this work right here on his codpiece, his hips, his thighs, all of that is stenciled over. You have to just know that you need to be careful with those areas or they're gonna scrape off. I do have a little bit of bleed through on the silver on his boot. This is painted over, but I will say that the metallic on the silver looks really, really good. So I'm not disappointed with how the silver looks overall, but you just have to be aware that it's not gonna be perfect forever. If you're playing with this toy a lot, you're gonna get bleed through. I've got some bleed through on the back here, some red showing through. So that's just, you know, things that you get used to when you're dealing with toys like this. There's a little bit of error, I guess you could say, on his gauntlet here with some red bleeding over into the yellow. With these primary colors, you just kind of have to know that that's kind of how it's going to be, though. I still think they look spectacular, and the sculpt and the contrast of the colors looks so good that I'm not mad really added at all. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, at the end of the series, if I'm going to call this the last figure of the first wave, which I think that it is, I can say that alongside Sugar Man, we ended up having some pretty good finales in this series. While the majority of the figures were just not for me, I, had some people really blow back about some of my reviews on those, and that's great because it shows that there's room for like several different points of view on these. There are a lot of people who read the books. I tried to read the books. I wasn't able to get through them. I found them really boring and strange, but there are big fans of the books who felt like these were perfect representations. So there's all different kinds of ways to look at them. But at the end of the day, this Apocalypse figure, standalone as an action figure, regardless of his awesome story, regardless of his role in Age of Apocalypse, is a really badass figure that I'm super happy to have. So we can call this, we'll put it in the books and say that we finished out with a solid like B minus minus on that whole entire series, with this being probably the best figure in the entire line. So that is that on Apocalypse. Please let me know what you guys think. If you know more about his origin story or have great resources for me to check into to read, please let me know, because just the background knowledge that I was able to find was so interesting that I need to find Apocalypse stuff to read that isn't Age of Apocalypse. So share those recommendations with me. Let me know what you thought of this figure. Let me know what figures you think are coming up in the line that's to follow. We're surely going to get a Sabretooth. What else is going to be in there? I'm hoping for a better all-around run. Hopefully we'll have some of those like changes, the pinless articulation that's coming, some new molds to look at, so maybe it'll be all around better. I can't wait to know what we're gonna get, and I want to hear what you guys think. So that is that on that. Thank you guys so much for watching my review. I'll be back in a couple days with another one, and until then, I hope you're having happy hunting, and I'll be back soon with another one. Bye, friends.